that. So why don't I introduce Melissa Hood, and she will bring forward the very important information. I'm pleased to announce, excited to announce that similar to our first day of faculty development, all of these events are providing CE for everyone as well. And so I will turn that over and let her do her required statement and make sure that we're all good with that, and then we'll get things kicked off.
Yes, and Dr. Cross, do you care if I share my screen for just a moment?
I do not care. I guess that would mean I have to stop sharing.
I think I can. There we go. All right. So I was telling Dr. Cross earlier, I have a lot of information to review, and it's a lot of boring information. So I just went ahead and put it in PowerPoint view and put it with pretty pictures for you guys since it's fall and since it's Halloween today. So welcome, and to be able to check in today's session, what you'll need to do is, oh, we are automatically moving. All right. So what we need to do to check in today, each one of you should already have an account in our cloud CME system. If you'll just text the code 4061 to 855-788-1746, that will check you in for today's session and make sure that you can do your evaluation to claim your credits. All right. And we do have credits today for AMA PRA Category 1. The continuing nursing education contact hours, continuing education units for pharmacists, and also available as physical therapy, occupational therapy, social work, American Sign Language hearing credits, and nutrition credits. So we're trying to get across the board as much as we can here. So for physician and nursing credits, for those claiming AMA PRA Category 1, for those claiming AMA PRA Category 1, the transcript will automatically show the credits once you have completed your online evaluation and submitted that. For nursing credits, what you'll need to do is to pay the $15 on Marketplace, and this information will be provided to you as well. But for that covers for fall 2023 through spring 2024. So nursing does require the $15 fee for the certificate, but we're able to cover all sessions the IPE is doing for fall and spring this year within that fee. All right, for occupational and physical therapy, folks, if you guys can just send me a private message here in Zoom with your name and your license number just directly to me, then I'll be able to put that on the roster for you all. So that way we'll make sure that you get your certificates. For reciprocal credits, we have social work and the American Sign Language hearing credits. For those, you'll need to be giving a certificate to submit to the NASW for social work and to the American Sign Language hearing credit division for that part. I know you guys are a lot more familiar with those than I am, but once you give that to them, showing the activity syllabus for today, the credits being approved, and your certificate of attendance through the system, then they said that will provide credit for you guys. For nutrition credits, just to retain documentation of the course attendance and participation for meeting the professional development. For pharmacy credits, we do have 1.0 ACPE credits accredited by the Tennessee Pharmacists Consortium for Education. So this information and your code and your link to claim your pharmacy information will be emailed to you at the end of the session today. So make sure to go through that. I believe their system's called Lecture Panda. So if you'll just go through that system and complete the information, the short evaluation, that will provide your pharmacy credits for you. Other notes is just that you do need to complete the evaluation in Cloud CME in order to get credits. Pharmacy, not so much. We still like your feedback if at all possible, but everything else you do have to complete the evaluation in Cloud CME in order to get your credits, and that there is no potential conflicts of interest today. So I'll turn it back to Dr. Cross, and hopefully that wasn't as boring that way.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
Can everybody give me a, no, it doesn't look like it's the right thing. Let's try that again. All right. You should see a black and white slide sitting in front of you. Can you give me a thumbs up? Yes. Thank you, Kelly Covert. Um, okay. So the goal is we have less than an hour to make sure that everyone feels comfortable with the most complicated day of year two. So the thing for the folks who have not done this before, the thing that is most significant about this day that is different is just the logistics. So we will talk about and review the movement of the day. There is an episode in each of the cases. I'm going to assume that everybody knows about that. Um, that that requires the patient and or their family members to move from whatever initial space you find them in simulation wise to a updated or new different space. So that may be an escalated issue. So they're having chest pain in the home and now they're moving to the emergency room, etc. So that movement is one of the big logistics things that we will talk about. But lots of other things to get into. Today's session, I want to clarify, is, I believe, being recorded. Yes. And therefore, we will send this out to both any members of the group who were not able to attend today so that there is a review for them, but anyone else between today and next Tuesday or the following Tuesday, when your event would be. We will send this link out to all of you as well for any review that you would like to do. Okay. So I would not be doing my job if I didn't tell you what we're going to do. So welcome. If I haven't welcomed, thank you. As we say every time, I hope you all appreciate and realize that we love you all. This is not possible without all of you giving of your time and your service. This is the sort of the final thing, other than our reflective day in the spring. This is the final space. It's almost like the final exam, if you will, in IPE. This is a really important day. So we thank you all for giving your time. Um, we're going to do a brief reflection. We're going to focus primarily on the day itself. So I'm going to pull up D2L. I'm going to pull up the facilitation guide. I'm going to pull up the logistics grid, etc. There is an update to the Zoom process, and actually the good news is from your guys' perspective as faculty facilitators, um, we believe that this will actually make your job easier, but we want to show you the documents that we provided to you all the last time. Those haven't changed, but we're doing something different with students. We'll talk a little bit about the leadership lens and specifically a focus on shared leadership heading into day 4 in the spring. And then finally, I want to talk about a new issue at the very end, what we're calling the January social, and I'll get into more detail when we get there. So this wouldn't be IPE if I didn't ask you to participate. I guess I should have said that at the beginning. If you would, log into Menti if you haven't already. The code for Menti, menti.com, 69097597. Simply just first thing that comes to mind, why are we here? Why are we doing this? Yeah, I'm going to move to our next slide. As I think it's my history as a DJ and really not liking dead silence, but I will answer this for us, I hope, as we move forward. Um, Understand how to ensure engagement. Totally agree. Thank you for that. Provide the best experience for our learners. Kind of partners with getting on the same page prior to IPE day 3. Yes. Okay. So if you remember the first time we gathered at the beginning of semester, we talked about something that we had learned at a recent national IPE meeting, and it really stuck with us. So the first thing is that there are these questions to kind of have in your back pocket from a debriefing standpoint. If you simply remember the question why and the question what if, it will take you a long way in the debriefing process. So just an example of someone, as a learner presents something and you say, well, why do you think that is? Tell me more about why you think that is. The other example is, well, what if we changed one thing about this? Well, what if they were not able to get to the clinic because of transportation related issues? What if they didn't have support in the home? What if make one thing different and see what if you didn't have a social worker on your team? What if, what if, what if? The second thing is that we learned, this really, really stuck with me. And I don't know that we have explained this well to you guys. What the roles of our facilitators are. First is just simply to be an IP, I would say, promoter. And what I mean by that is just simply drinking the Kool-Aid, believing philosophically that team-based processes of care are better than the old model of care that we still currently see in the United States. That's number one, just believing and promoting the idea of team-based care in all places. The second one is being a team-based learning or a small group facilitator, which I think we've all learned over the last couple of years. That requires different skills, especially if you're doing this by yourself, which in year 2 we are doing this year. Facilitating groups um, takes a different set of skills. And then finally, a team coach. And I think this is something we're going to be working on moving forward and making you guys feel more comfortable about the coaching of the unit as a team. So when that initial group of 3, 4 students comes out of the room, and in our debrief process, talking about things that you've observed, and no different than say a sports coach, and looking at the team as a whole unit and saying, so let's talk about a couple of things that maybe would have made our team be better functioning today. So I want to answer a couple of the why are we here, and just going back to our very, very original day. I want to remind everybody of the numbers. This is not a box checking exercise. This is not an academic process. We are doing this because we believe that training these students who will then be the care providers for some of us in the near future um, has been shown to decrease morbidity and mortality in the United States. Those numbers, if you recall, represent the number of um, preventable deaths in the US health system based on medical error. Number 3 reason for mortality equals 4 727s dropping out of the sky each day, equates to 250,000 people per year in the United States. That means we have a broken system that we're sending our poor students, graduates into, and giving them the confidence and the tools to go be change agents in this space where we all know is a hard uphill battle. So with all of that, as like, why are we doing this? I just want to ask us to pause for a moment, breathe a little bit, realign if you came in with different processes of thought as we head into what are we going to do? I want us to all look through this lens, be in this stance as we talk about content. This is still the why we're doing this content. So let's get into the nuts and bolts and the content while we look at it through that lens. Not going to read this. This is on our D2L page. It's also on our syllabus, but I want to remind you the complexity of the learning objectives that are in this session. This is the most complex session that we have, and so it shouldn't be a surprise of the complexity of the learning objectives as well. I'm going to skip this so we can get, sorry about that. Whoops, sorry. Let me now go to just a reminder of where we find things. So for the faculty, if you remember, this is the home page of our D2L page. Down at the bottom, there is a link for the communications session 3. If you click on that, it takes you to this page. And as always, the link I want everybody to find is the session 3 faculty map. If you can get to this space, everything that you will need for the entire day is in this one page. So organized the same way all of the other pages have been. There is a section for before, there is a section for during, and there is a section after. Just to remind everybody on the after side of things, please make sure that both grades and assessment of the day, so grades of the individual students, as well as your assessment of the day has been done. And then while you're with your students on that day, making sure that you're reminding them that they go in and do the evaluation. I'll come back to this, but unique to this day, there is a reflective exercise that we ask they do within 48 hours of completing this day so that both the emotion and the experience is still fresh with them while they go in and do that reflective thing. That reflective exercise will be central to what we do in the spring. So this is our home page, if you will. I want to now move to all the things that I'm going to discuss are located here. I've brought those up in other tabs, so it's easier for us to pull up. But if you go to this section of the D2L page, your room assignments, your groups, the facilitation guide, as well as the chart, as well as the link to the note that your students need to be finishing up before the end of the day, are all located here in your faculty material specifically for the during the IPE day section. With that, I want to move to our documents. So I just want to walk through the day and kind of talk about the logistics part first, and then we will get to some of the other details. So first, I want to remind everybody this is a 2-hour experience like every other day we've had. There will be a very brief 10-minute pre-brief to lay the foundation and get everybody in the same space. Excuse me. And then there will be about a 15-minute debrief at the very, very end. So we're trying to give as much time concentrated within the rooms as possible. From a function standpoint, this looks like all the other days. So the teams will have a huddle. You will break the teams like you have done before. These should be the same teams that were teamed up for the first 2 sessions. And I want to remind everybody, whichever team went first in session 2 should be the team that goes second in session 3 and vice versa. So that there will be one team, unfortunately, that gets to practice the I pass the baton twice and one that practices it once. So the first team will huddle. They will go in and see the patient, and they will come back and debrief just like we have done before. Excuse me. After the post-visit huddle, where the student team will be gathering and talking about, so how could we have done that better? What do we want to make sure that we are not missing in the visit? There will be a 15-minute educational debrief of scenario 1. Let me be really clear. I think we all realize this, but I want to draw to your attention this purple line. This is really, really important. So this is the day where movement occurs. So I guess I'll move briefly to the grid that we have created. This will look a little bit different than what you've seen in the past because there are two different spaces that you will find yourselves in this time around. So I want to call everyone's attention to this grid. This first column is the debrief space where you need to be at the beginning of the event. The corresponding column with the dashed line in between is the simulated paired space with that debrief space. Please notice that it says scenario number 1 debrief room, scenario number 1 sim space. That is because when we get to this space of the day, this purple space, so after we have completed the debrief, the first educational debrief in debrief room number 1, we will then move to our second debrief space. And so that's why this document is so much more important than in the past. The reason that we are doing the debrief, the first debrief here in the first room, is so that the standardized patients have time to get to their second space, their second sim space, right? We have worked with Perry, and if there's questions about movement SPs, we can, in a different time, a different space, we can talk about, do I go up the hallway? Do I go with a in the back stairway? Do I use the elevator, et cetera? We'll make sure that everybody feels comfortable with how do I get from space A to space B. But so I want to make sure first that we're all on the same page when we get to this place in the day. And just like always before, all of this will be prompted through the monitor in your room. And so you will get the slide that says it is now time to move to your second debrief space. So you will then move to debrief room number 2. So if, for example, you are Joyce Troxler and you are with zebras or mooses, when you get that prompt, you will move from room 230 to room 312. We will be sending this information out to the students, obviously. One of the things we're going to encourage is that people pack light this day. So bring as little as possible to get you through the day so that your movement from scenario debrief room 1 to scenario debrief room 2 is as quick as possible. As soon as everybody is in their given rooms, then there will be a slide that comes up that says now team 1 should use the I pass the baton handoff tool and pass the care of the patient off to team 2. As we have done before, now that is your new home base for the rest of the day, right? And so team 2 will then do their debrief, their huddle, pre-visit huddle, just like we have done before. They will go into their new assigned space. So if it, again, is Dr. Troxler, I am moving from room 312 to now 311 as my sim space. Again, this document is probably the most important document for us as far as making sure we're in the right space. So then if we can get to the right room and we can get to the right sim space on the second part of the case, then everything flows exactly the way it has before. So it's just physically moving our students and ourselves to the right space. And if you're a standardized patient, moving from sim space 1 to sim space 2. Everything else then goes the same as far as team 2 will go in and see the patient for 15 minutes. They will then have 5 minutes in the for a post-visit huddle. And then we have carved out 20 minutes for the final debrief. This is taking into account the entirety of the day, both team 1 and team 2, but I would focus on team 2 at the beginning part. And like we have done before, this is the session where the patient will be coming into the room. I want to clarify for all of the patients, the debrief in this process happens from the perspective of and not as the patient, so that you can give more informed discussion to the students and the faculty. And again, if you remember, the order is we're going to ask team 2 to self-reflect. We're going to ask team 1 to provide a little bit of peer evaluation. We're going to ask the patient to provide context and evaluation. And then faculty facilitators, we're going to wrap the last 10 minutes or so up with an overall debrief. I will go to the very end just to show this is the space we're talking about. And these are some example questions we have provided for you like in the past. I want to remind everybody that our leadership lens this last time is focused at skilled communicator and compassionate collaborator. So, and we will certainly mention this in the pre-brief at the beginning of each session, but I want to make sure that this is in the back of your mind. We're going to be looking for these bullet points and in our final debrief, pulling these out for the students. And we will certainly discuss this in the final debrief as well. Let me pause. We're about halfway through and ask logistically, does anybody have any questions about process? And just literally, I start in this room, I'm in this sim space. When the purple slide comes up, I then move whole cloth my entire group of students and myself to this new debrief room, and we continue for the rest of the day.
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I have the scenario in front of me, and I understand she's going to be going from home to ED. Will there be other actors there playing EMS?
Great question. Yes. What case are we?
Multifaceted.
Yes. So let me confirm, but I'm pretty sure that that particular case has an EMS person that either comes in with a wheelchair, or they just come in and act like there's a stretcher outside and essentially kind of say, we've got it from here, we'll get her in the ambulance and get her to the emergency room, or him to the emergency room. And then at that moment, that is the transition where you and the team can move to the second debrief space.
Well, I ask because I don't know that my students would readily think to pretend call 911. And so I'm trying to figure out how to coach them about what to expect and how much I should coach them about that.
It's a great question. I would do my best to not provide too much of a platter for them. If there is an EMS or some kind of transitional team member that's coming in, they are coming in at a time space so that everything is consistent in the simulation. And so if they don't, they just show up. And I would argue that that's a great, in the debrief, just did you guys even think in that moment that maybe where I should be thinking about is this is an emergency, what would be an appropriate response to an emergency? I want to make sure that we're not overemphasizing the clinical aspects of the case, but that doesn't, I also don't want to undermine doing something clinically completely and totally wrong, that we want to debrief that in that moment. Does that make sense, Sharon?
Yes, if they don't pretend call 911, EMS will just show up.
Yeah.
Okay, and we can debrief that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
As in the bigger picture, like how did they function as a team in the entire day? How did they hand off to the second team? Those are the things we are most concerned about. However, if there's like an overt, obvious, it's like, wow, you really missed this as a care issue, we certainly cannot let that go. Any other logistics? Is everybody good facilitation wise as far as I start here, the simulation goes here, and then again, when the appropriate slide pops up, and there this will have an overhead because we need people to move, and then we'll have um, help folks at the top of the steps of both the second and the third floor. So if you come out and you're like, I forgot where we're supposed to go, there will probably be someone at the desk there at the top of the steps saying, you are the hippopotamuses, you're supposed to be in this room, head that way, etc. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So what I want to cautiously say is that the process of the day really isn't different, right? The way we did session 1 and session 2 are similar in that we have a team that does a huddle, goes and sees a patient, comes back and does a post-visit huddle or debrief. They do a handoff to the second team, and the second team repeats that when the case further develops. None of that's different. The only difference is that there is a clear and obvious moment where the case gets to a place where there needs to be a transition. For ALS, we are meeting this person in the emergency room and they are essentially saying, I don't want to do this anymore. And then the next time we see them, they are in the home and it is sort of end of life. This may likely be the last time the team physically sees the patient. So there is an obvious transition between each of those times, but between each of those spaces. If it doesn't happen, then because of timing of the simulation, it will be forced to happen. And then that's the way that will just give you a little bit of space for debrief at the end of the first session of the 15 minutes. That's part of the reason why we've carved out more time in the debrief of after case number 1, scenario number 1. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Let me move on to, so we've talked about this again. Obviously, I think this is a really important time. So this is our grid for next Tuesday, November 7th, and then at the bottom for Group A and all the groups that go with Group A for November 14th. Next, I want to call to your attention. First, this is the faculty guide that you all received before session 2. I want to recognize Chad Fraley, our IT person who put this together. We got great reports from both year 1 and year 2. I think this has been very helpful. A laminated version of this will be in your room, faculty, to if you have Zoomers. I want to let you know that the likelihood is quite good that almost all of you will have a Zoomer in your room. We have a good number of students for a multitude of reasons who will not be in person at least this coming Tuesday, and I believe also on the 14th as well. So please be aware of this. A couple of things to remind you of, similar to the last time we were together. There will be one monitor, not 2. All things will happen from the monitor in the front of the room. Both KB port and Zoom will be on that monitor alone, similar to what we did in session 2. And all of that direction is listed in this guide, which is also in D2L, which should also be available to you. If anyone wants it directly sent to them, we're happy to do that. Just let us know. But this is what this does. It simplifies your ability or the work that you have to do from an IT standpoint of sharing the KB port with the Zoomer if they're an observation student, as opposed to the student in the group that's going into the sim space. Now, let me introduce you to, this is not something you need to know about. This is just happening behind the scenes, but I want you guys to be aware. that again, Chad has done a marvelous job of creating a student version of the Zoom guide. And we are now going to give the students more independence, if you will, of moving in and out of their various debrief breakout room spaces. Again, if you think about this, they will have 4 spaces that they need to find. The very first debrief room, they will be automatically pushed after the initial pre-brief with everybody together, like we always do. From that point, they will be given an individualized map from Wendy Gwynn and told when this prompt comes up, and if you're supposed to be in the simulation space, this is what you're to do. If you're supposed to be in the observation group, this is what you're to do. The only task that we would make you all aware of, and let me show you this in our section that talks specifically about Zoomers in the facilitation guide. We've done a little bit of, so there are 2 categories I want you to think about. Zooming students who are observing, Zooming students who are interacting with the SP in the sim space. These are the things that are all covered in that 1-page document I just showed you. I just want to make you aware of these 2 please note comments that we put at the bottom of the box. Number 1, if you notice the remote student still in the debrief room, but they should be in the sim space, just prompt them. Just be a parent and say, hey, Joey, you're supposed to go with team 1 into the sim space. Please follow your directions on your Zoom guide to get into room 232 or whatever the number is supposed to be. The second please note I will remind all the faculty is, if you notice a student from a completely different interprofessional group, i.e. this is not a student in your group at all. In other words, they have come to the wrong space. Simply, when you see them and you realize like they must have made a mistake, please just tell them that, right? And so if they've entered your breakout room and they shouldn't be there, just again prompt them and say, hey, Joey, I think you must be in the wrong space. I don't think you're in the giraffes. I don't know what animal you are, but you're in the giraffe space. And please ask them to either go back to their map that they've been told their next room they're supposed to be in is 247 or whatever it is. Or if they're confused, they can come back to the main Zoom space, and there will always be several of us in the main Zoom space to provide them direction on where they're supposed to be next. That's it from a Zoom standpoint, but I want to pause now and give opportunity. Does anybody have Zoom questions? Okay, I will take silence as no, but I'm always hesitant. Please let us know in our evaluations, as always, what we have attempted to do as we have more Zoomers coming in year 2 to try and make this more seamless for the faculty and the students. So we're giving more control, if you will, to the students. And this will be the first time we have instituted this. So we'll see. I see James has his hand up. So yes, sir.
I felt bad that no one asked a question, so I thought I'd ask one.
Yes, sir.
If we have a Zoomer in one of our sessions, when will we know about that?
I will send those emails to you specifically for each group and each student that you have in that group in case you happen to have more than one. I will send them hopefully today. I was trying to get all of the students to respond to me, whether you're in group 1 or group 2, so I could give those students the detailed information so I can make sure you also have that detailed information in your email. I'm still waiting on one student to get back with me.
Thanks, James. That reminds me, I want to remind everybody there are 2 different categories of Zoomer students. So there is a there is a cohort of students who we have prearranged this opportunity for them because they are on an away rotation and are not available to be in person, but they still want to be a part of their IPE team. Well, actually, starting next year, they'll be required. And so we're offering Zoom for those students we know already. And that's the list that all of you will receive. As you also know, we almost always get last minute notifications from students. And so those you may not know about until the day before or the day of. And we're doing our best, but as you know, sometimes we get notifications from students at 11 o'clock for a 12:30 start. And so we do our best to let everybody know, but those are the two categories I would think of. The majority of the students you should know within the next day or so from the email from Wendy. Okay, the next thing on my list is I just wanted to remind everybody of our leadership lens as we're walking through the day. We are in the third and final section of this tool. The two themes that we are focusing on is skilled communicator and compassionate collaborator. I would encourage everyone to be looking at the two columns to the right, specifically with the dots, for lack of a better word. These are the competencies and skills that would define a student who is displaying someone in this space. So a skilled communicator looks like someone who seeks first to understand, then to be understood, etc. These are the descriptors, if you will, that would be great to share with students who are in that mindset. That also leads me to a brief discussion. I would like to remind everybody about the theme on a larger scale of shared leadership within the training and teaching of IPE. We are hearing back from student evaluations that, let me see. I think it's important for us to be as intentional as possible in the discussion of shared leadership. One of the things that we will do in day 4 is this groups will come together in a reflective space and provide a presentation to the rest of the groups on their experience with their patient, and as a result, their experience working together as a team. One of the things we're beginning to see as trends in student evaluations in year 1, and we think we see similar kind of thoughts, processes in the students, and that is we speak of shared leadership, but we create sometimes environments that suggest that the medical students are expected to lead. I think sometimes it happens because the students who are not medical students are timid, are embarrassed, are fill in the blank. Sometimes it may be a medical student who says, well, I'm supposed to lead. And so what I would encourage us all to be thinking is not this, the goal is not to make medicine less than, it's not to make anyone more than, it's just to make everyone aware that true shared leadership is very, number one, difficult to do. It requires egos to be put on the table. But having a meaningful discussion and sort of setting that theme, if you can, in session 3 will lead to a better reflective time during session 4 in the spring. So I just want to put that on the table. Simply, like, these are themes that we're seeing in the student evaluations, and we want to make sure we discuss that. Finally, I would like to tell everybody about a process that we are hoping to engage in, a new thing for the spring. as we started looking at our time from when this session happens in November and when we gather for reflection, we are talking about almost 3 months between when their final visit with the patient is and when we're asking them to sit down as a team and reflect back on that. Yes, we ask them to, and we will, like a hunting dog, kind of be after them about finishing their reflections in D2L. But we just thought it might be helpful to provide a time about halfway through, or maybe a little more than halfway through, to bring this stuff back into their brain before we gather for the formal reflection time. And so what we wanted to do is let you know of a week that we have chosen. What we are hoping to do is gather all students and as many faculty who are available, but we plan to be there from IPE in Bishop Hall for a 1 hour pizza gathering to just simply have a discussion about the case. But this will be all groups at the same time. So this will be early and late. This will be the A group and the B group. Anyone who is related to OUD will be in that space. Um, the the week is the first week of February. I'll show you that on the next slide. We have some response slides that I would ask specifically the faculty to reply to. We've organized this based on case so that we can prioritize the best dates to set this aside. We will provide pizza both for the faculty and for the students. As you can see here, we realize that not everyone will be able to do this from a student perspective. The second option will be to able to attend this live, but by Zoom without pizza. And then the third option is that Zoom will be recorded, and so we will provide that to any student who was not able to attend live. And so if you would, please, I will go through the first poll, if you will, is for Troxler, Trotter, and Osborne. If you would, please, if you could rank these for us. So this is Monday through Friday. This is a 5:30 to 6:30 event. This would be in Bishop Hall in the large classroom with pizzas in the back. So February 5th, February 6th, February 7th, February 8th, February 9th. So I see Dr. Trotter on the phone. I will, how about this? I'm going to come back. I see Caleb and I see Joyce, but I don't see either of them on camera. So I'm going to move to the next group and then we'll come back to that. For those who are here from ALS, Galetti, Lee, Andrews, and Prince. I know at least 2 of these people are not here today. I think I saw Michelle. Yes. And I think Courtney is also out. So implementation of this is not going to be as beautiful as I was picturing. Michelle, I'm going to take this as these are your priorities. I'm going to take a quick picture just to make sure I don't lose it, though this should save. I'm just not a technology wizard. Okay. Next is anyone in the group that is Hemp Hill Covert and Black Welder, specifically focused at the health equity case.
Dr. Cross, did you see Dr. Covet's
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Kelly. We got that, and it's in our system. I don't know about anybody else, but these moving emojis as opposed to just standard ones, they're freaking me out. So again, to remind everybody, all of these times are from 5:30 to 6:30. So we figured we'd get to the end of the day. This is essentially replacing dinner for the students and faculty. And so I'm going to interpret this as just Jean because we have Kelly's already.
Yes, because I submitted it the wrong way the first time.
Okay, but those are
Fixed it.
your true rankings.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right, let me move to the last one, and then Jen will move back up to OUD for you. Multifaceted, this is Dr. Bigger, Boone, and Hess, the evil trifecta. They're all here and present. So just checking in, Rick, are you in there? Yes, okay. Now I see 3, perfect, okay. And Jen, I'm gonna go back to OUD. And I'm not sure who, Jen, have you answered the poll?
No, I had a patient call me. I was gonna email Wendy, but I can do this.
Okay, so someone that's either Caleb or Joyce is also.
As far as I.
Brian, I am not in
down
Minty because I'm
and-
doing about 5 other things at the same time.
That's
But I
not
did-
like you, Joyce.
Yeah, I know. It's a problem that I should work on, but I sent you a message in the chat, just a private message.
A chance to induce looking at her.
Gotcha. Okay. Jen, let me know when you're done and we'll close everything out. I want to thank everybody for participating. What we're going to do now is take all this back and get something out to everybody in the next week or two. So just to clarify our goal, this is really, so first of all, Alicia or myself or both of us will be at these gatherings as well to help provide some help in facilitation. We have no idea what to expect as far as participation from the students. We've never done anything like this before. We think that providing pizza may be a little bit of an enticing thing. But the bottom line is the goal is just to bring these issues to the front of their brain for in about a 2-week before their final debrief, their final reflective period in session 4. So just simply trying to make this more prevalent in their brain before we gather so that that time together is most efficient and most effective for session 4 when they are doing their TED Talk. So the facilitation of this should look pretty similar to the TED Talk review questions that we've done in the past. So I want to wrap up with just reminding everybody of the 2 things we talked about at the very beginning: the questions, why and what if. and the roles that we will continue to work on to develop in everyone, being a promoter, a facilitator, and a coach. At least briefly, this is the answer of the why and the why we're here and the why we do. And so, a couple of things as we head out today. First, I want to apologize to any of the SPs if there was a desire to meet with folks. I'm going to finish in the next 30 seconds, and we do have breakout rooms available if you want to gather very briefly. I don't know availability post 1 o'clock. I just want to remind both patients and faculty to make sure that you're aware of your dates and times and locations for this complicated day. Be aware of the Zoom updates that we've talked about before. Complete the evaluation today so you get CE credit, and we will be in touch about more of the details of the January social. Thank you for participating in those questions. And with that, I will ask Chad to open breakout rooms for anyone who wants to go have a brief discussion about the day with their people.
And to access the breakout rooms, just hit the breakout room button on the lower menu bar, and then you can choose whatever case you're with. And you just hit the join button next to your case.
Thanks, everyone. We will see you either next Tuesday or the Tuesday following.